So welcome. My name is Maggie Bunton. This is eMINTS reConnection, Literacy and Learning. I am going to turn it over, I believe, to Haley to share how this is going to work today. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
We are so glad that you all have joined us live today. And how these reConnection webinars have worked is we are going to spend about 60 minutes together, and we will most definitely respect your time. We appreciate you being here. We're going to share various tools and resources. They are strategies that you can implement at any content and grade level, and they are easy to implement and take back to your practice the next day. Each of the three of us, Maggie, Brooke, and myself, are going to discuss some different tools, strategies, resources that could be used both in person and remotely. And we promise to provide you with practical tips and advice so that you can implement these ideas in your own practice. And as Maggie said, my name is Haley Anderson. I joined eMINTS in August of last year. I have taught 7th grade ELA, high school ELA, and high school Spanish. And I'd love to connect with you on Twitter, and I'll turn it over for my other colleagues to introduce themselves too. And if you want to introduce yourselves, maybe drop your name, position, school, or whatever you'd like to do to introduce yourselves in the Zoom chat.
All right. Again, my name is Maggie Bunton. I have been with eMINTS for a little over a year. I am a former elementary classroom teacher. I taught 2nd grade, 1st grade, 3rd grade. I also served as an instructional technology specialist in my former school district, as well as a library media specialist. So if you would like to follow me, I'm on Instagram at eMINTS. And again, thank you guys so much for being here.
And hi, I'm Brooke Higgins. I'm an eMINTS facilitator, and I work with our materials as well. I'm a former eMINTS teacher from way back. I was an FY01 eMINTS teacher and have been with eMINTS ever since. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Higginsby, and on other social medias just as Brooke Higgins. I'm excited that you've joined us today, and let's talk a little bit about, well, what are we doing here? What is the eMINTS reConnection webinar series? And if we think about that word reconnection, it's about that act of restoring a connection, that state of being connected, that connecting emotionally. So this is about bringing us all together and helping us all reignite our passion for learning and technology. As Haley mentioned earlier, we're going to be sharing a lot of tools, resources, strategies that we hope will help you reconnect with your calling to teaching. So you can see our agenda is here on this slide. And this is really your table of contents that you can use even after this event to go back and click on the different strategies and activities that we've got linked on the right to go back and revisit that content. We're going to start with listening and speaking, then move into writing, followed by reading, and then we're going to focus in on information literacy and how technology tools can help us help our learners with literacy skills. And again, we'll follow it up with even more resources that you can use in the classroom tomorrow or even throughout the summer. So welcome to everyone. So glad that you have been able to join us today. I'm going to go ahead and get us started by talking about specifically those literacy skills around listening and speaking. So as humans, we first develop that ability to listen, and then it's quickly followed with that ability to speak. Everyone can think of an infant, and as they grow into toddler and how they're first listening, and then they start expressing noises and that turn into words. And so when we think about the skills that all learners should practice, no matter what age, we're talking about the listening and speaking skills around speaking clearly and audibly, around actively listening, attentively listening, taking turns in conversations, giving and receiving of feedback constructively and kindly. And we can give students the opportunity to do this around different purposes. So when we think about listening, the purpose would be to glean information, to understand what others are saying, to follow directions, make connections, respond to feedback, and even solve problems. And on the opposite side of that, when we think about giving a purpose for speaking, speaking is about sharing information, storytelling or retelling, entertaining, presenting, even persuading, making requests of other people, inquiring with others about information, interviewing, or giving feedback. So I'd like to share a couple of different areas that you might focus on as you are considering giving your students that opportunity to practice those listening and speaking skills for a purpose. And the first is, let's think about how might you develop that culture of feedback, that culture where it is okay to give and receive feedback to improve our understanding of things. Now, there are a few different ways that we're outlining here today, or that I'm going to share here today, that you can do this, but this is not the end for sure. So as you think about something that you might do in the classroom and with students to help develop that culture of feedback, you might consider modeling positive praise and feedback. Modeling how you give specific feedback on progress, grit, and determination. How you praise positive character traits, and how you use motivation. Use that to help students want to do more, want to do better. Because positive praise is one of the most powerful tools that a teacher can use to help motivate students, because not only can it help support them in using pro-social behaviors, but it can also help them in improving their academics. So giving your students that model of how to do that so that then they can go and practice it is a great place to start for developing your culture of feedback. Another thing you might do is think about how you might create a safe space for sharing and giving of feedback. Think of how you might establish long-term feedback partners. Yeah, as teachers, we want kids to be able to work with anyone, but when you create a safe person that they can go back to over and over again for feedback, it opens up that opportunity to put yourself out there and take a risk even when you think you might be wrong. So creating a safe space for giving and receiving of feedback is an important step. Encourage reflection, not correction. Now, this can happen in your modeling, but encourage students to share meaningful information that's helpful for improvement. It's not about just telling someone when they're wrong, it's helpful for improvement. So just hearing, well, that's not right, is not going to help. It's how can you put that together with guidance on what they could work on. It's about giving specific steps. Notice in the last 4 words there, in a kind way. Sometimes kids just don't know how to do that. They don't think about how that's going to be received. And so back to the very first one, modeling is super important. And then finally, offering some choice. Give some options that provide different directions and contexts for delivering feedback. An example you might think about is, how could you give feedback using technology? So a tool that I've found is MOTE, that's M-O-T-E. And it is a tool that has a Chrome extension, and I've got the link for you. It is the image at the bottom there, and I'll make that a little more obvious when we finish up here. But what MOTE does is when you install it is, do you see that little purple funny M in the circle at the top? So it gives myself as the user and students, if they have it installed, the ability to leave audio recorded feedback on Google Docs and Google Slides. So imagine that this is a teacher's assignment where they had that pie shape, where they've given the purpose to persuade, inform, or entertain, and they're analyzing books. So what books did we read that persuaded, or that informed, or that entertained? Well, a teacher could attach a recorded audio note that gave the directions to the student on what to do. And then the students can come back, and when they add those images, they can leave audio comments that explain why they put that there. And then others can respond to it. So it uses the commenting feature, but turns it into audio feedback. Now, do you notice how there in my audio feedback, there's a purple circle with the play button? That's how you hear it. But do you notice that it's been dictated down below it as well? So it helps those early readers and writers who maybe aren't sure of how they would put those words together. They can say it, but they don't know how to write it. It's a model for them as well. Now, this is a freemium tool, FYI. It's got some pay features, but 5 minutes, you can get 5 minutes a month, free audio note messages. Okay, that was a lot. I'm going to go ahead and share even more because I want to talk about some other ways that you can help your students with listening and speaking in the classroom. And that is that sharing face-to-face or with video. So it's very important that students know why they're sharing, why they're speaking, and why they're listening. So giving them a purpose and what they want to accomplish in that why. So if your purpose is to inform, what do you hope to accomplish? Well, that someone learned something. So we're going to take a look at 3 different purposes for speaking and listening and talk about what that would look like in the classroom if they were sharing face-to-face, but then think about if we brought in a technology tool, how that might look. So informing and learning, think about the speaker. The first person is telling something that they've recently learned about. So there's their purpose. And the listener has a purpose as well. They're listening to learn so that they can then reply about what they found interesting maybe. So we've given them a reason to share, a reason to listen, a reason to speak. Same with connecting and engaging. So the speaker telling a personal story. The listener has the job to connect and focus on that story so that they can reply. They can show empathy or connection. And then the last one, the speaker is telling about a problem or a challenge they have, and the listener has the job to listen for understanding and details so that then when they respond, they can give maybe possible solutions, or they could ask questions that they would help then come up with solutions. So this can be done simple face-to-face in the classroom. You put, the prompts up on the board, what their job is, what their purpose is, but you can also do this in Flip. Now, Flip used to be called Flipgrid. It is a way for a teacher to set up I called it a board, where you give a prompt to students. So you set the purpose and then they respond with video. Now, some don't want to be in video, so you can take your face off the screen, but they can respond with what the speaker needs to do. Then you give the purpose for the listener. So now go watch your peer, listen for something specific, and then respond. And so just like that face-to-face interaction, now it is saved and it's on this platform where it is a video that other people can go look at as well. But what I really love about Flip actually falls in, do you see how I have the bottom of the video sort of expanded? Because at the bottom of the video, there are 2 features that are great for helping our early learners, our early writers and readers, and that's closed caption, because you can turn on closed caption. So then not only do you hear what the person's speaking, but you also see it in words. And then for those immersive readers, Flip has this option called Flip Immersive Reader. And I've got the screenshot of it right above the image of that tool. And what it does is it shows what they said, and then it will read it to them, highlighting each of their words one at a time. So we started with listening and speaking, and look at that, we're already with writing and reading. So I'd love to hear your ideas for how you support students in practicing those listening and speaking skills. Feel free to share them in our Zoom chat. That's what it's there for us to share our ideas. And thanks, Cheryl. All right, I'm going to pass it off to Haley now.
Thank you, Brooke. And Brooke had mentioned, but when she first started, that listening is the first skill, the first literacy skill that we develop as humans, and that then evolves into the ability to speak. Once we can do both of those things, we start using those skills to help us learn to write, just like Brooke alluded to as a transition into the writing section here. We begin to associate our speech with letters and sounds that the letters make, and then those letters and sounds with specific words, and then the words into sentences that help us develop the skill of writing. So I'm going to share two different strategies, and I have embedded a little bit of a tech piece that could help with these strategies to help develop writing in your students. And the first of which is keeping a writer's notebook. And when I was in the classroom, I loved the book, A Writer's Notebook by Ralph Fletcher. It's very small. It could be, digested very easily in small bites. And when I was introducing a writer's notebook to my students, I loved to read the first chapter about what a writer's notebook is. And he makes these wonderful life connections about writer's notebooks, what they are, how they could be used. So he uses this analogy of a ditch in this first chapter. A writer's notebook is like a ditch. I guess that would be a simile, not an analogy, but he uses this simile. A writer's notebook is like a ditch. And if you think of a ditch, it's where things kind of get caught. Maybe you have some trash, maybe some animals get caught in there, maybe different things get stuck in the ditch. And a writer's notebook is like the ditch because it catches all the ideas. And he really emphasizes that the writer's notebook is very personable and personal, and can be really what the writer wants it to be. It could be digital, it could be print. When I shared this with my students and we first started implementing writer's notebooks, I always set aside a time for students to decide what medium worked best for them, whether that be digital or print. And those who chose print writer's notebooks, I set aside time to decorate them, to make them their own. These can be used for any purpose. It helps students practice writing for different tasks, purposes, audiences. It's very low stakes. And most of all, I like this method because it really helps students embody and identify as a writer. It gives them a way to attach themselves to being a writer and develop their own creativity. So using this mentor text, a writer's notebook, is a way that I would introduce the concept of writer's notebooks to my students. And if you want some ideas for digital writer's notebooks, that very last bullet is a link to the eMINTS Tech Tools page that has a lot of different written online communication tools that you could use for the purpose of a writer's notebook. And just a little preview for next, Maggie's also going to talk about how this could be used for reading. And so if Brooke, if you'll advance to the next slide, I will share my next strategy with you all to develop the writing skill. And that is a cooperative learning activity called a group write. And when you get this slides presentation, I've linked the group write cooperative learning strategy card so that you have access to it and the full details. But to do this group write, you could use this for many purposes. You might want to generate ideas, you might want to reflect, review, have your peers teach each other a concept. But you could do this in small groups. And if you want some ideas for how to creatively group your students, I've linked some different grouping strategies to kind of keep it fresh. You could also try this with a whole class, but if you wanted to do this in small groups, you could go one of two ways, but for this purpose, for generating ideas, reflecting, reviewing, peer teaching, each group would have one piece of paper, and each individual in the group would have their own marker, and they would simultaneously write on one paper. And I've also, a different variation of this could be a collaborative story, and you could go more literary with it. And then in this case, you could still do small groups. You could try it with your whole class. But in the collaborative story idea, each individual in the group has their own paper, and they start a story. Maybe you give them a prompt, something specific that they're writing about, or just leave it up to them. They start a story. You could time them for a certain amount of time, maybe just a couple minutes, and have them start their story. When the timer goes off, pause, and then have students rotate their papers in the same direction. I usually go with clockwise. Have them rotate their papers in the same direction so that now they have a new story. They read the new story and they continue the story. And this continues until everybody has an opportunity to add to a story. And maybe, you end it with the last person, or you could end it with the first person who started the story. They could also end the story. And anytime that I've done this, it has been some really awesome stories that have been generated by students. And that idea of the collaborative story comes from Kelly Gallagher's Write Around activity. So just some ways that you can help students develop their writing skills in some low stakes ways. And now I'm going to pass it over to Maggie, who's going to talk to you about reading skills.
All right. First, I want to acknowledge everyone for contributing in the chat. Thank you so much. These are all really wonderful ideas. And we just appreciate the collaboration that you guys are sharing with us. So we've heard about listening and speaking. We've heard about writing. Now let's talk a little bit about reading in the classroom. So if you'll advance to the next slide. Thank you. One of the things I did in my former second and third grade classrooms was allowing for students to have a voice. When you allow students to have a voice, they're more apt to telling you a little bit more about themselves, and using their own words also makes them a lot more comfortable when they're a struggling reader, because they recognize the words that they've used. So daily journals were a way that I was able to put this into my classroom. Now, I'm going to talk about different formats that you can utilize daily journals for your students. But first, I want to talk about some different ideas and opportunities for students to read and share their own voice. You do have your extroverts in your classrooms. We all know them. So I would always allow for one day a week to have students read aloud to the class. They would love to sit in my rocking chair and be the center of attention and read aloud a story that they had chosen or a journal entry. I also utilize the Daily 5 in my classroom during our literacy block. And one of those blocks was partner read or peer share. So one day a week, they would take their writing or their daily journals, and they would share a story with a partner during that block in literacy time. I also included having primary level partners. We have larger school districts that we support in eMINTS, but then we also have very small rural school districts that have K through 12 buildings. So they have seniors in the same building that they have kindergartners. So why not utilize the people and the mentors that you have in the walls of your school? So we would always partner up. I worked in a K-5 building. So we would always partner up with a 5th grade classroom or a 4th grade classroom. And we would have our kindergarten buddies to share those stories with. So they would bring their daily journals. We would try to meet up twice a month, 3 times a month, if possible, to get together to have them share and read those stories out loud. Then you also have the opportunity for mentor share. I live in Columbia, so we had access to a lot of college-age students who were coming in to do their practicum hours or student teaching hours, and they would be partnered up with someone who was a lot older than them. And they were always so excited to read those stories from their daily journals. You also have a lot of adults in the building that may have some extra time on their hands. I know everyone is all hands on deck nowadays, especially with spring budding in the air. But if you have a custodian, if you have a librarian, I know we have a reading interventionist now with us too. So maybe there is a chunk of time in the day that they could partner with a mentor and share one of their stories from their daily journals. So to get into some of the formats that you could utilize, obviously with paper formats, spiral notebooks, composition notebooks, those are the easiest ways to get them to have all of their stories or journals in one place. Now, we also have opportunities for digital formats. That could be as easy as Google Docs. They could create a folder within their Google Drive that is called Daily Journal, and then just continually add in a Google Doc every day for their entry. You could also utilize Google Slides. Lots of kids want to utilize images or transitions in their wording. So you could absolutely have them utilize Google Slides as a digital format. If you do have Apple devices or iOS devices in your district, Notability is a fabulous option. And all of these are linked on this slide, but Notability is it's exactly how it sounds. It is a digital notepad. Students can scribe, they can type text, they can insert audio over the page. So lots of different opportunities for digital formats. All right. So we're going to move on to how students can transfer some of their storytelling and their reading to their homes. So one of the things I did in my former classrooms was students would have a take-home journal. We would always do these take-home journals on Friday afternoons. So now we're giving students not only a purpose, but we're also giving them an audience, and that audience is whoever they go home to. What we did, or what the purpose was for me as the instructor, was to tackle some of those Missouri content standards and have them learn how to write a friendly letter. So we would talk about the opening, the body of the letter, the closing, the signature, and how to craft those. So that was the purpose behind their take-home journal, was learning how to write that friendly letter. This provides for a home-to-school connection, but it's utilizing the student voice. Parents hear the teacher's voice all of the time through newsletters, emails, phone calls home. So this gave student voice so much more power because they were telling their parents about their week at school. It allows families to see reading and writing progression. That was one of the most exciting things that not only families, but students got to see. We would start this at the beginning of the school year. They would maybe write a couple of sentences. By the end of the school year, they were writing paragraphs. So it was just a fabulous way to showcase what they're writing and what they're reading became. I would also always encourage them to read their journal entries or their friendly letters at home to their parents. That helps to utilize their voice, their perspective. Why did you write that? Lots of different ways to engage students and families in a meaningful conversation about what happened at school this week. All right, we are going to move down to information literacy. If you want to go ahead and move to the next slide. This next 3 slides, I believe, we are all going to share some different tech tools that can help serve listening, speaking, writing, and reading. And I will turn it over to Brooke.
All right. Well, I'm going to start us back at listening and speaking, since that was our first topic, and that's where it all starts from. We're going to talk about providing your students an authentic audience. So prioritizing an authentic audience for students just creates a more dynamic, more meaningful experience for them. And it helps them simultaneously then prepare for future careers, how they're going to communicate in life, how they're going to listen, how they're going to speak. Catlin Tucker outlined that really it's interacting with an authentic audience really highlights 4 things that students need: that increased motivation and engagement, that real world skill practice, getting authentic feedback and evaluation, and connecting to build community with other people. Well, the tool that I love for this is Seesaw. Has anybody ever used Seesaw before? So imagine that Seesaw, they describe it as a student engagement tool that allows teachers to empower their students to be the creators, to be the reflectors, to be the ones who share and the ones who collaborate. A teacher might give an assignment, and then the students get to show what they know using photos, drawings, text, video. They can upload documents they have. They can share links. Right there on the purple side is exactly what students who have Seesaw can see as their options for demonstrating what they have learned. Now, Seesaw is available on all devices. There's a mobile version, there's a tablet version, there's a web version. So it doesn't matter what device your students have, they can use Seesaw. Now, when we get into whole entire school implementations of Seesaw, there are larger fees, but an individual teacher can use Seesaw at a pretty basic level without those fees. What I love about Seesaw is that students get to create the content that shows what they're learning, and then they can take those and share them with other people. Now, a teacher can set it up so that students can share with their peers. So first off, the students can share just with the teacher, but the teacher can set it up so that students can share with each other. And then they can open it up even more so that students can share with their parents. And then even more with the blog feature so that students could share with the world. Now, of course, we need to think about those permissions that we need to get from parents about who they can share with and making sure that we're keeping kids safe. But what's really neat about that opportunity to share with an authentic audience is that the audience, if the teacher wants to set it up this way, can respond back. The audience can give feedback. The audience can give, props for a job well done. The audience can ask questions. And not only can they type it for your students who can read, but they can also leave audio comments so that a student who opens up their Seesaw on a Monday morning, they can see, oh, their grandma left them an audio message that they can then listen to, or a text message from an aunt or an uncle or a friend of the family that it's been shared with. One of the cool features in the drawing or the Canvas tool is that it has a recording option, so that as students are drawing out what they're wanting to share, they can record their voice telling about it. And then that can be posted. So there are a lot of features here within Seesaw that allow for that choice and voice to give students, so that then they can connect with those authentic audiences. Early writers can use speech recognition features of their device to help them with writing. And then again, remember, they can share it with the world. So I love Seesaw for all of these reasons. And I am going to share that picture up at the very top, that's from my son's Seesaw when he was in first grade. I still have it as the parent. I can see it. And that was one of our final posts from the school year with his teacher. So I love Seesaw. Okay, I'm going to quit raving about it and let Haley talk about the next information literacy tool.
So I'm going to talk about a subject that is all the rage right now. And if you teach older learners, you probably are highly familiar with AI and all of the different tools that have rapidly been coming out recently. You've probably heard of a tool, an AI tool called ChatGPT. It is open AI. However, I do want to, I wanted to bring this up to talk about how this can really help with information literacy as well as the skill of writing. So AI will help you generate, it can really make a teacher's life a lot easier, I think. In some ways harder as well. However, that can help teach students the appropriate ways to use these tools. And I want to, Brooke, if you'll click the button just one time. So props to Miss Amber, who used ChatGPT and shared this screenshot with me. How could we use AI in the classroom? It can help with lesson plans as a starting point. Maybe you don't have any ideas of how to teach a certain skill or book or content specific technique. It's a great place to start. And Amber, I loved this little piece too. She had 5 words of a summary that are benefits of AI for students. And I like this piece, especially for the information literacy, because it didn't give us 5 words, it gave us 4 words. And so that's a piece to help us be sort of analytical with what AI is generating for us and help us develop that information literacy. It does help to personalize learning experiences for your students. And if used in the most appropriate ways, it can really make our job as educators a lot easier and save us a lot of time in many ways. And I also think that it's a great learning tool with students, again, to help them develop those information literacy skills, analytical skills, help them to know their own voice. And I've linked this in the speaker notes of the slides, which you will receive after. Thank you for that. Google Surveys, Google Forms can grade quizzes for you. Yes, Cheryl, thank you for that tidbit. That also does help make teachers' lives easier. But there was this recent inquiry-based action research study that a teacher posted about on Facebook. And I have the link to the Facebook post in the speaker notes, but he taught high school English. He teaches high school English, and he did this little action research study with his students. And he had 4 different essay groups, a control group that used no ChatGPT on their essays, a ChatGPT pre-group who used ChatGPT before they wrote their essay to generate ideas, a ChatGPT post group who used ChatGPT at the end after writing their essays to edit for grammar, help refine, or maybe increase the level of the reading level of the piece. And then a final group that used ChatGPT completely for their entire essay. And if you may have seen this because it was a pretty popular post on Facebook, but which of those 4 do you think students voted the best essays? Drop it in the chat. Which one do you think? Spoiler alert, it was the essays that used no ChatGPT, that students consistently ranked as the best essay, which I thought was really, really powerful. And a great learning experience to show students that, yes, this is a tool, but maybe it's not something that we need to use as a crutch. We need to use it as a tool so that it can help us, not as something that we need to rely on. So, okay. So that's the first piece. And Brooke, if you will click the button one more time, I have another tool in addition to ChatGPT that was just brought to my attention today. Thank you to one of our other trainers who introduced it to me, Nikki. This is called Presto. And it's joinpresto.com. I think Maggie or Brooke, can you drop that link in the chat for us? This is a great piece to help teachers to plan their writing instruction. It can generate ideas for topics for students to write about. It can empower your students, help develop their creativity, and it can also level the playing field and increase equity amongst your students. So I tried this. It is a free tool and it is in early stages and is still being beta tested. So it's relatively new. But I tried it without creating an account. And on the trial, all you have to do is put your grade level, a topic, and then what purpose you want the prompt that you're going to generate for students to write. And so I taught high school sophomore English. And so a text that we read was Brave New World. So I typed in my topic, Brave New World, 10th grade, and then I left the purpose blank. And it gave me these 3 writing topics discussing Brave New World. So that was really easy to do. I didn't have to log in whatsoever. And this could be a great opportunity to provide choice for students, which we all know is an excellent strategy to use and helps give students a lot more motivation when they can choose an option. So those are the 2 tools that I wanted to introduce to you for writing and information literacy. And now I'll pass it over to Maggie.
All right, thanks, Haley. So once we get to reading in the classroom, some of the reading tech tools that I want to share, they may not be new to you, but maybe I can share them in a new way and change your thinking about how you might utilize them. So I always like to offer a tool that is web-based, but then a tool that can also be used on an iOS device. So the two tools that I chose were Screencastify and iMovie. So Screencastify is a free Google Chrome extension. If you go to the link, and if Brooke or Haley will paste that link into the chat, that would be great. It will take you to a website where you can download it for free. It will show up in the top toolbar. And what this tool does for you is it allows for the user to, and Brooke has it enabled in her browser as well. It allows the user to enable their microphone and basically do a screen recording. You can embed your webcam. So students who want to share their video as well as their audio, can do that. But if you have those introverts who just want to share their audio, they don't want to share their face, they can choose to only enable their microphone. So what I have a screenshot of is a classroom journal entry, and it's been written in a Google document. So what the student would do they would open up their Google Doc, they would enable or start their Screencastify extension, and then they would record their voice reading their journal entry. Once they do that, Screencastify automatically downloads this file, whether it's an MP3 or an MP4, into their Google Drive. They'll have a folder that says Screencastify automatically within your Google Drive. And from there, this could be a published piece of work. This could be uploaded into a Google Classroom as an assignment. This could go onto a classroom blog. It could be sent in an email to their parents. Whatever, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit. So anything that you have on your screen, once you enable Screencastify, you can record your voice over your screen. Now on top of, to move on to the next tool within iMovie. iMovie is free on Apple devices. So if your district, or if you have a smaller building or smaller classroom, and you maybe have a handful of iPads rather than one-to-one, you can also utilize iMovie as a publishing tool for your students' reading. So students can turn their stories into a visual media using iMovie. I have a screenshot of the trailers. Obviously, students can make an iMovie, which is a longer version, but trailers is a nice option because it is short. It is mocked up, ready to go. All students have to do is input the images and the text that they would want to see and fill in basically the template that is within each trailer to create their story. One of the features I love about iMovie is that it still has an audio feature, so students can still record their voices over the video. You can get rid of the music that's playing in the background or just lower the volume of it. And then they can record their audio on top of that. So those are just a couple of resources that can help you to just enhance student voice, but also give them an opportunity to read their own stories, but record their audio with it as well. So we are going to move on to some more resources. And I think I saw in someone's introduction that they were a former library media specialist. So I am as well. And there are a lot of public library offerings for listening and reading. You guys are getting ready to move into the summer months, and we all know that sometimes reading and writing and maybe even listening are overlooked. So we always want to encourage students and families to get out there and read and write and listen. So some of the public library offerings that I know are in surrounding areas are Overdrive, which I think, and Haley, correct me if I'm wrong, is turning into Libby. They're changing the name. And then Sora is also under the Overdrive umbrella. And Sora is basically a K-5, maybe even a K-6 platform for students to have like reading goals and, have their bookshelf, but also give them little badges as they move along to after they have listened to different ebooks or read ebooks and listened to audiobooks. Flipster is an online platform for digital magazines, Scribed and Audible. Both of those are paid for, but Audible, I think we sometimes lose sight of this. If you have an Amazon account, Amazon will give you free Audible ebooks, audiobooks all of the time. I think we just forget about it, but that's out there. Hoopla is audio, ebooks, comics, music, TV, movies, and a lot of public libraries have subscriptions. EBSCO eBooks is also another option. And then Audiophile magazine is free. And those are digital magazines, and they do a whole summer reading program that actually, I think, Haley, if you have that picture that you sent us that has the different titles, sorry to put you on the spot, but you had shared that. So we can include that in the chat. We can find it later and email you guys. But it has a list of all of the offerings as the summer months go on. So I am going to turn it over to Haley.
I am in the process of downloading that picture. That I
so
saw
sorry, I put you on the spot.
No,
That's
okay.
my fault.
It was easy to find, so I'm downloading it now, and I'll drop it in the chat. And we're going to go through these last few ideas very briefly. Every Tuesday, eMINTS publishes on all platforms of social media tip cards. These are designed to be quick and easy to implement tips for your practice or just to make your life easier. And this is the 5th year that we've been working on tip cards. So every Tuesday those come out. Check those tip cards, and hopefully it will make your life easier. And the eMINTS portal linked in this presentation has a plethora of resources that are all free and available to the public.
And this month's tip cards were all about literacy and learning. So make sure and take a look at those.
We do have a current grant that has started. We're in the pilot phases right now called Talk to Read. The Talk to Read Collaborative is an acceleration or a literacy acceleration project where we're working with 2nd grade teachers to tailor this program into their classrooms. There are professional development sessions, coaching opportunities, and technology equipment that are all provided to the teachers to enhance this program in their classrooms. So if you know of a 2nd grade teacher who would be willing to pilot this in their classrooms in the fall of 2023, please share this information with them. We would love to talk with them further about this opportunity. So the interest survey is linked below. And then our website is linked at the top, and we will absolutely get all of those links out to you.
All right, thank you, Maggie. Just one last other offering that eMINTS is putting out there for a little professional learning this summer. We have our eMINTS Summer Summit. We are holding this in 4 different locations in the month of July across the state of Missouri. And you get 2 for the price of 1, because the morning is all about pro-social classrooms and using pro-social practices or using strategies and approaches to improve your student skills in pro-social behaviors. The afternoon is all focused on design through inquiry. This is about using design thinking in the classroom and presenting your students with challenges that they can solve in groups. And you can register for that by clicking the link at the bottom. And we are to our final slide. So we want to thank everybody for coming today. Hold on, it will not advance. There we go. Thank you so much for coming today. Please share any thoughts or questions that you have in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas. connected to literacy and learning, but also the other offerings that we've shared about. You can find eMINTS on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So please take a moment to connect with us. Each of those images that you have access to is a link to that social media. And finally, if you'd like to have a certificate that shows that you attended this eMINTS reConnection webinar, all you'll need to do is click the link that I believe Haley or Maggie is going to post in our chat, or that is linked there on the slide to get your certificate of attendance. We appreciate your time today, and we can't wait to see you at our next reConnection webinar in the future. Thanks so much from myself, Haley, and Maggie.